Well, the first meeting of a task force set up as a result of the loss of 1/3 of Ireland's fishing quota this year, estimated to cost the fishing industry €105 million, has taken place at Howth Harbour. Clare's Minister of State claims it's too early to suggest what kind of supports will be introduced to prevent further job losses in coastal communities. The first meeting of the task force was held this week, and the reduction is expected to cost potentially 2,300 jobs in the industry. Tulla-based Fianna Fáil Minister of State with responsibility for fisheries and the marine, Timmy Dooley, says fishing representative groups must be front and centre of any talks.
I think, as certainly people in the fishing sector know, they depend on the annual allocation of quota to effectively make their money throughout the course of the year. The quotas across Europe were cut dramatically for 2026 as a result of scientific advice that indicates there's a lower level of the stock of some key species of fish. Some of that is as a result of overfishing by some countries outside the EU. But, of course, with that level of cut, it's going to impact on the people who are working in the sector. So we've decided as a government to put a task force together to work with the industry to try to identify some measures that will assist them during this very difficult year. The science would also indicate that stock levels will be at a reduced level for the next 3 to 5 years. And while the stocks are rebuilding, while that conservation effort, if you want, or effect is underway, we have to support the industry. So the task force is bringing together all the key stakeholders, government departments and government officials to see how we can support the industry during this difficult period of time. First meeting under the chairmanship of Michael Berkery. And we'll be working through, hoping to have an outline plan by mid-June of this year, and then take that to government and try and put in place the financial supports that will be needed to help the sector.
And fishing organisations welcoming this, but saying that they will need supports in order to survive and to ensure the viability of coastal communities. As you say, it'll be finalised in June, but what types of supports could we see for those in the fishing sector?
Well, it's too early to suggest what measures can be put in place. And I was very clear from the start that it wasn't about the government dictating to the industry, that they would come forward with their asks, with their ideas, recognising that, as you say, it could be up to 105 million of a loss to the sector. Of course, we'll not be able to provide that kind of money from the taxpayers of Ireland to support the industry. We will have to try to put in place some measures that will help, some both financial and structural, that will assist the industry. But a lot of that to be teased out over the coming months. But it is important that we get it done, and we have, insofar as we possibly can, put in place some measures to assist the industry.
And you mentioned that there will be heavy engagement with organisations. Is that key here, to listen to the asks of those who are on the ground and understand the challenges facing the sector?
It is. There are quite a number of organisations that represent the different interests within the fishing sector, and we are looking to them for ideas, and today was very much the first phase of that. And in fairness to them, they brought forward some thoughts and ideas, but it will take time to tease those out and put them into a formal plan. But it's been made very clear to the industry back in December with a meeting with the Taoiseach and with the Taoiseach, who's now the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Public Expenditure, that there's a recognition that support will be required.
Minister of State with responsibility for fisheries, Timmy Dooley, speaking to our colleague Sean Lyons, actually, that was speaking to him a little bit earlier. Well, for more on this now, let's go to somebody working within the industry. That is Luke Aston, who is Carrigaholt-based Chairperson of the Irish Charter Skippers Association. Good morning to you, Luke.
Good morning, Sally-Ann. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Listening to the comments of the Minister of State with responsibility for fisheries, Timmy Dooley there, I mean, how do you feel? Another task force, will it achieve anything?
Well, look, I was on that yesterday. I represent the local inshore fishermen on our local RIF as well, the Regional Inshore Fisheries Forum. So I was at that meeting yesterday. It's titled the Food Vision Seafood Sector Group, or, I would like to think that it was quite impressive to see all the different representatives in the room and the different departments and public sector groups that were in the room, and all of them gave a commitment to look at this openly, which is new for us. It's new to see proper engagement with the industry. I would hope that we can see something come out of it. What exactly it is, let's see. But food vision, to me, maybe we need to rethink a little bit how we run fishing in Ireland, and give more back to the community, or community ownership of the asset that's out there off our coast, rather than being taken by big businesses from other countries in a lot of instances,
And I saw fishermen, particularly off the coast of Donegal, and some of the reports following the meeting of this group yesterday, Luke. One fisherman in particular saying from the quota he was given, he's already done one trip. At the most, he has 1.5 trips left, and he's met his quota for the entire year, and it's only February.
And that's a big challenge for them, But they are big boats that are taking, up to 1,000 tonne of fish at a time. Maybe we need to look more at dividing out that resource, or the resource that we have, among the coasts. Make it coastwide, bring it to the smaller fishermen, and the smaller fishermen, that 1,000 tonne would keep a whole lot of boats going for the whole year. So look, there's sectors within the fishing industry as well. The whole lot of us, big sectors and the small sectors, have been shafted, for the want of a better word, by the EU. It's one of the downsides of the membership of the EU. There's been lots of positives of it, but one of the downsides has been the way Fisheries has been sold down the Swanee and actively targeted by other countries, like the Hague. There's this Hague arrangement that Minister Dooley tried to bring through, which guaranteed us as a quantity of the fish that were off our coast, and it was voted out. The other countries' delegates that were there voted not to honour it, and so we are left with a small pot, even of the fish that of a diminishing amount of fish out there. We're left with a smaller percentage of that all the time, which makes it feel very unfair to coastal communities all around the coast,
So can I ask you then, Luke, in terms of what you're saying about some of the more commercial fishermen, I mean, their argument is that a lot of the waters now are being fished by non-EU states. And from what you said then in terms of that agreement that was voted out at EU level, has weak leadership or representation of the Irish delegation at EU level, has that played a role in this, do you believe?
There's no doubt about it. But there was a decision made that we would trade this resource that we have off our coast for other advantages for the state. Like, whether that's weak representation, which it has been. We haven't for years had a proper minister of fisheries. We have this junior minister now in Timmy Dooley, and he's done a lot of work towards it. He's really put a lot of effort into bringing himself up to speed with it.
But is it too little too late, Luke?
No, I don't think it's too little too late. It's certainly late, but I think with a bit of proper pressure, and it will take a bit of teeth. I think the government ministers going to Europe will need to bare their teeth a little bit and say that this fish is off our coast and belongs mainly to the community of whose coast it is, and they need a fair share of it. But that is not what this food vision sector group is. We accept for this year that we have a certain amount of fish to catch, and it won't support the industry, and the industry will need help. But we need to look going forward what the vision for our seafood sector is.
What do you see as being necessary when it comes to that help, both in the short term and the medium term? I mean, Minister Timmy Dooley saying there he hopes to have an outline plan there from that group by mid-June. But in the meantime, if you have fishing communities that are really struggling economically, what needs to go in there now, Luke, from your perspective?
It needs this. It needs this to be quick. Like, June is not a million miles away, and no more than anybody involved in fishing industry or any food production industry, nothing happens quickly. But people can hold out if they see that they're being engaged with properly, and if there is, like, what the inshore fleet is looking for is a payment, a bit like a single farm payment for the 1-2 year listers, that will support them in the production of food. And they've put a very good submission together on that. And that is in front of the government. That has been put here in front of this seafood sector group. And we need a quick, positive response to it.
Is there a costing on that, Luke, from as far as you know?
There is costings on it. I'm not completely up to date with it, but like some of the supports that were got by inshore boats down through the years was sort of 5,000 to 10,000 a year after Brexit and that sort of thing, which did cost a lot, caused a big effect on fishing. And I think a lot of the supports that have been looked for is, a tax rebate for people that are going to sea that have a variable income, something like farm assist so that they can access short-term social welfare payments for crew and for people working on boats. All these sort of things that, as anybody self-employed will know, are very, very hard to access. But what we're looking for is some sort of special provision for people that are working in the fishing industry,
From what you're hearing on the ground, Luke, I mean, have people been pushed to the brink in terms of their expectations? I mean, obviously they know what had happened at EU level is done and dusted now, but going forward, I mean, for people who would have been used to having their income mainly from the sea, from that perspective, what do they do now while they wait for this task force or group, whatever you want to call it? What do they do now in the meantime while they wait for these proposals to be put into place?
Well, look, if you weren't fairly resilient, you wouldn't still be a fisherman. That's the fact of the matter. And a lot of the fishermen will continue to fish as best they can. And the local inshore fishermen will certainly be looking forward to the weather improving and we're coming into the period of the year that most of the income is made for the inshore sector. It's the more long-term thing so in a way, for the big boats, you quoted fishermen from Tulla-based that have already caught their fish, or Donegal that have already caught their fish this year, and they're going to tie up. They tie up every summer anyway. They're going to be tying up quicker this year. They only support at some stage. The inshore fishermen make most of their income during the summer. They're facing into that already at the moment. But long term, they just won't exist. It's not possible to make enough money in that season with the limited quotas that we have. So until the fishing rights improve, either that's through getting a more fair share of the EU quota that is in Irish waters, which is the way we have to talk about it, which is crazy, where they get a better share of the fish that are off our waters, and until that happens, or until the amount of fish off our waters improves, the government need to decide whether or not they want to support this industry all around our coast and not be death by 1,000 cuts. We need a sort of structure in place that gives us a support. I'm involved, as you said, in angling, and the EU is proposing that anglers are very limited in the amount of fish that they can take out of the water. A bag limit of what's being proposed at the moment is 3 pollock per angler. But for charter skippers who take out people to go fishing, and part of their day out is to be able to bring some fish home, that will destroy a lot of businesses. And that's an EU directive, and it's a bit like it's a purely EU directive being driven by commercial fishermen in France mainly, and it's a bit like farmers turning around tomorrow and saying nobody can grow spuds in their back garden because they only want all spuds beaten to be bought off the big farmers. There's so many little things that is not supporting local community, the coastal community all around the coast, that need to be reviewed, and we need a government that are on side and working to make the asset that's off our coast work for the coastal communities. And I think if there's a feeling among the coastal community and the fishermen that this is happening, then they can hang on. But they will need that bit of support to do that,
But for many, I suppose, Luke, it's a generational tradition within families, isn't it? It's a tradition passed down from grandfather to father to son. I mean, it's very difficult on a personal basis for those communities to try and change their focus from all they've ever known.
Absolutely, and not only that, but if it disappears, it'll take an awful lot to bring it back. In fact, I go as strong as it's one of those. It's almost traditional in the sense it is traditional, but in the sense that if it disappears, it won't come back. So the only form it'll come back in is big companies harvesting fish in big boats with no connection. You won't be able to come to a coastal village around the coast of Ireland and buy fish that's landed in that village, which is one of the great attractions for our tourism, for lots of different things that are not strictly fishing industry, but are connected to the fact that fish are landed on our coast, and I think there needs to be a more holistic look at what we want out of our seafood sector, and I hope this committee that's been set up will use the word vision that's in it to create a vision of what we want going forward.
Finally, Luke, Minister Timmy Dooley mentioned, the quotas and the reductions. It is based on scientific research and the numbers that they're seeing. You mentioned there a little bit earlier if the quotas are revised. How hopeful or how likely is that a possibility?
Fish stocks revived. Look, some of the information is very sparse. Like we're always looking for more information. Some of the fish scientists will say the more they know, the more they look into, or more they know, the more they realise they don't know. But the fact of the matter is that there is a huge effort going on fishing. Particularly the big cuts that we've had now facing is mackerel, blue whiting, boarfish, these sort of things. These boats can go out and catch 1,000 tonnes at a time of this stuff. It has to be properly controlled. And a lot of us would say on the inshore sector all around Ireland is that the waters off our coast have been hammered by a few big companies. There's big Dutch factory ships out there that are more or less uncontrolled. They have a certain amount of control, but certainly compared to the people that are landing every day or a couple of times a week in the port in Ireland, there's no controls on them compared to that. And those big ships can do a huge amount of damage to our stocks, and there needs to be a proper, I think, again, I bring it back to a tie back to the coastal communities. The coastal communities are benefiting from the asset that is off our coast and not big companies. And I think if there was more work done on that and on the controls and fishing and everything else, I think there is a good chance that the fish stocks would come back. But there does need to be a change. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. That what happened, and I think there's a well-known definition of what
madness, I think they call it, isn't it?
Yes.
Luke Aston, Carrigaholt-based Chairperson of the Irish Charter Skippers Association, thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Well, do you have an opinion on that conversation? Do let me know. 086 1800 964. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, History in Focus will have our regular slot today. Today we're looking at the story of Ireland's first socialist commune in 1830s Clare. All on the way next.